In March 2018, President Trump announced additional tariffs on Chinese goods totaling around $60 billion. Subsequently, there were over 50 days of negotiations between China and the United States, but they ultimately failed to reach an agreement. In July 2018, the United States initiated a 25% tariff on the initial batch of Chinese goods valued at $34 billion, and in retaliation, China imposed a 25% tariff on U.S. goods of the same value. This marked the official start of the Sino-US trade war, which has persisted for 5 years now. As the world's two largest economies, the ramifications of this trade war have reverberated globally, affecting nearly everyone. However, there have been recent developments in the trade dispute. The United States recently extended the tariff exemption period for 429 Chinese products. Some view this as a gesture of goodwill towards China, while others see it as a strategic adjustment by the United States to further its own interests. This has raised questions about the reasons behind the U.S. change in position and whether it signals a shift in the trajectory of the China-U.S. trade war. Thank you for watching our video. If you find our content engaging, please consider subscribing to World Vision as we explore more exciting global projects together. China's robust and efficient manufacturing capabilities have made it a major destination for American companies to import goods over the past few decades. China has consistently ranked among the top countries from which the United States imports goods and has become an essential player in the U.S. economy. Notably, in 2009, China overtook Canada to become the largest source of imported goods for the United States. However, this historic shift has raised concerns in the United States. The U.S. has been troubled by the issue of China's trade surplus and its trade relations with China. On one hand, China's competitive manufacturing sector enables it to export a substantial volume of goods to the United States, resulting in a significant trade surplus for China and Sino-US trade. On the other hand, U.S. exports of services and high-tech products in the Chinese market are relatively modest, leading to a trade deficit between the two nations. This trade imbalance has been a source of concern for the United States, as it could have adverse effects on its economy and job market. This situation has been a cause of concern for the United States due to the potential negative impact of the trade deficit on its economy and job market. To address this trade imbalance and ease trade tensions, China and the United States engaged in a series of trade negotiations and consultations. The Trump administration, during its tenure, actively pursued dialogue with China in an effort to resolve trade disputes through negotiations. However, these negotiations failed to result in a comprehensive agreement. In 2018, the Trump administration began imposing sanctions on China, leading to a gradual decline in China's position in the ranking of U.S. merchandise imports. This created opportunities for other countries, notably Canada, which shares a close trade relationship with the United States. Canada swiftly filled the gap left by reduced imports from China, expanding its export opportunities. Additionally, Mexico emerged as a viable alternative for American companies looking to diversify their supply chains away from China. As part of this effort, Mexico entered into the North American Free Trade Agreement, United States. Within just 3 years, Canada and Mexico surpassed China to become the first and second largest importers of goods to the United States, respectively. However, in a surprising turn of events, just last month, U.S. Commerce Secretary Raimondo initially declared that the tariff policy toward China would remain unchanged. Yet a few days later, the Office of the United States Trade Representative made a stunning announcement granting tariff exemptions to 429 Chinese products. These exemptions were initially set to expire at the end of September but have now been extended until December 31st of this year. This move by the United States has prompted questions about its intentions. Has the United States conceded the failure of the trade war and begun to extend goodwill to China? In reality, this extension of the exemption period for certain Chinese products wasn't driven by a sudden desire to be friendly towards China. Rather, it reflects the fact that the United States struggled to identify suitable substitutes for these Chinese goods. While it may appear as a friendly gesture on the surface, it is essentially a reluctant compromise made by the United States in light of its own trade policy challenges. This news underscores the challenging predicament faced by the United States in the Sino-US trade war. They find themselves in a quandary where their own industries cannot effectively replace Chinese goods, necessitating the extension of the tariff exemption period. On one hand, the recent global epidemic crisis and economic recession have exerted immense pressure on the U.S. economy. In this context, the United States is grappling with significant inflation issues, which are placing a considerable burden on the overall economy. Measures such as trade sanctions and additional tariffs have led to an escalation in the prices of imported goods, directly impacting the cost of living for everyday Americans. These rising prices are gradually eroding the purchasing power of many citizens. On the other hand, the ongoing recovery of the U.S. manufacturing sector is proceeding at a sluggish pace. Compounded by inflationary pressures, the economic landscape in the United States has become increasingly challenging, resulting in tighter budgets for individuals. Consequently, there are notable challenges in securing the necessary funding to revitalize domestic manufacturing. The United States would require a substantial influx of production machinery and components to swiftly jumpstart manufacturing operations. However, a significant proportion of large-scale and diversified manufacturers worldwide are primarily concentrated in China. Given this backdrop, the continuation of tariff impositions by the U.S. government would only exacerbate the economic burden and create further financial difficulties for the American populace. This approach threatens to impede the growth of U.S. manufacturing to a certain extent. Moreover, the general sentiment among the American public doesn't strongly favor head-to-head competition with China, be it in terms of manufacturing scale, quantity, or product variety. China's manufacturing sector has firmly entrenched itself in the international market, posing substantial risks to direct competition. It's important to note that while there have been attempts to identify alternative sources for Chinese goods and initiate decoupling measures, these may not offer a straightforward solution and could instead entail significant expenditure of American resources and time. In practice, Mexico and Canada have emerged as major suppliers of goods to the United States, and trade with Vietnam has also seen notable growth. However, it's crucial to recognize that a substantial portion of the goods originating from these countries ultimately trace back to China. This essentially means that the United States is taking a circuitous route to import Chinese goods instead of directly addressing the core issue. In conclusion, the United States faces a complex web of economic and strategic challenges in the Sino-US trade war, and while efforts have been made to find alternatives to Chinese goods, a swift resolution remains elusive. As a result, American consumers end up shouldering the burden of a longer and more costly supply chain. Beyond these economic considerations, there's also the importance of improving Sino-US relations to the United States. Over the course of the 5-year trade war, both China and the United States have suffered significant economic losses. The continued escalation of this conflict would ultimately be detrimental to both nations. Hence, the United States decided to extend tariff exemptions for 429 Chinese products, offering a degree of relief in the trade war. However, it's important to note that this extension doesn't necessarily signify the imminent end of the Sino-US trade war. While it may appear as a positive gesture, the core issues of the trade dispute extend beyond tariffs. The United States views China's rise as a challenge to its global position, leading to ongoing tensions and differences. China is perceived as the United States' primary strategic competitor, and the U.S. intends to maintain pressure on China across various domains, including technology, human rights, and international influence. These restrictions persist, demonstrating the willingness of the United States to safeguard its interests, even if it means sacrificing its own companies. In essence, the trade friction between China and the United States remains unresolved, and it will require time and extensive negotiations to reach a resolution. It is my hope that both sides can eventually identify more practical approaches to alleviate the existing tensions. Thank you for watching our video. If you find our content intriguing, please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's embark on an exciting journey together and explore upcoming projects and events